Welcome. I'm Stephen J. Garvey, founder, leader of National Citizens Alliance of Canada, NCA. Tonight we're going to talk about what we perceive as a major fissure, divide, and pushing things under the rug, so to speak. We believe in having dialogue. We believe that through dialogue we can create greater unity, and that we shouldn't be afraid to talk about the significant issues we're facing as a people, as a country. And we believe the demographic realities, immigration policy, is one of the most significant issues facing the Canadian people. We will make our case tonight, but please remember that this is all about Canada. This is all about our people, nothing else. That's the way you got to perceive it. So I'm going to get right into this. We did do what turned out to be a controversial video. It was at a community center. Our intent was to create a dialogue, a national dialogue on demographic realities facing the Canadian people and immigration policy. That was it. And we ended up going through a community center showcasing one of the ethnic enclaves in Canada, and it really exposed the fissure in the country, the divide in the country, and I'm just going to show evidence of that. But before I do that, I'm going to play this video. This is the video I'm talking about. It was at a community center in Calgary. It's called Canada's Radical Demographic Transformation. I'm just going to play the opening excerpt to this. So the purpose today is to document the changing demographic realities in Canada. It is a fact. Traditional Canadian populations are being replaced. That is a fact. Canada is being turned into a UN globalist village. Okay, there's that video. It's on our Facebook, it's on our YouTube. It's 15 minutes, so by all means take a look at it. And it was simply documenting that particular ethnic enclave. Obviously, there was no derogatory comments from us, and it is what it is, but it sure created a controversy. And these are some of the comments that we're receiving. In our opinion, they are evidence of the fissure, the divide in Canada. And these were comments on our Facebook page, and most of these came from third world immigrants to Canada. I'm just going to go through a bunch of them so you can see this tension in our country. This isn't made up. So the first one, it says, "Go back to Europe. This is native land. Canada is not belong to you, built by immigrants." So basically they're telling Europeans to go back to Europe. You have no right to be in this country. This country is built by immigrants and it's on native land. The second one, "I am in no way benefiting from the work done by Europeans. Thank you very much for appreciating all the work we do." And then it goes on to say, "Rather, people like me have to help deconstruct all the narratives of white supremacy." It sounds like the mainstream media. So they're linking white supremacy with European Canadians. I wonder where they got that from. The next quote, "Immigrants are those arrived on indigenous land." In this case, they're referring to Europeans. And then and exploited labor and resources in ethnically cleansed populations. So they have a really distorted view of European Canadians and their role in the creation and foundation of Canada. This one I'm not going to get into, but this is someone going on about a UN globalist village that they supported, and they think, oh, what a unified, peaceful world it would be. We would all live in harmony. We don't believe that that's the case at all, but we'll leave that one aside. The next one, immigrants work harder for their livelihood than Europeans. That's what they're saying. And most of them don't waste their earnings on bars, pubs, and casino. So this is pretty judgmental of this person to say that. And they're also creating some superiority complex there, that somehow these new immigrants are better than European Canadians. So that's not very helpful. And then the next one, this is not your dad's country. It is a multicultural country. Anyone is allowed to live here with full rights. This is a native people country. Again, coming back to the First Nations, totally discounting European Canadians' role in the country, in creating it, and saying it's a multicultural country. Anyone can do what they want. We can live here with full rights. So that's the attitude there. Then the next one, this country would be nothing without immigrants. Again, pushing the government line that the country is a country of immigrants. Totally discounting the European pioneers and settlers and nation builders who came here. There was no Canada when they came here, so they can't be immigrants. So that's false. The next one, Canada does not belong to white people. It never did. So there's a racial component to this comment, and there was quite a few like this, and saying the country does not belong to European Canadians. That's the attitude. And then we get into a white privilege here. They say you are so privileged as a white individual. So white privilege, somehow European Canadians are somehow have so much more privilege than anyone else in the country. And then the final one, oblivious to the damage you have caused many racial groups in society. So there's a blame game here on European Canadians, totally discounting their all the great things they did for this country, getting it created. It's unfortunate, but that gives you a spectrum of the comments that we've been dealing with. I didn't go into the vulgar ones. There was a lot of swearing and some really nasty stuff and threats. So just add that into it. But we believe that's an indication of the fissure in the country. We got the majority European population. We have new immigrants coming in, largely from third world countries, and there's a tension there. And I'm going to talk about that tonight, why we think that's occurring. But, to understand this issue further, we need to look at the demographic data, the mass immigration data, and a lot of people are in denial about this data, even the media, and they got their so-called experts in denial about it. The federal government today was talking about censoring this information because they think it's bad for public safety for people to know the truth about immigration and demographic realities. So they're gonna censor so people can't get the facts. It doesn't make sense. These people in Ottawa have lost their way. It's just insane how they're thinking. Fortunately, we're running in the federal election, so you have an opportunity to remove them and put us in their place. But let's get into the data. This is factual information. No one can deny this. So here's mass immigration over the history of Canada up to, looks like 2014 there. But you see here, it was around 1900 to 1910, there was a massive influx. These were, at this stage, the country was already formed, so we view these people as European immigrants coming in. In 1960 here, Canada at this point was 97% European Canadian. Right here. And this 1990, the globalist conservative Mulroney got into power, these globalist conservatives, and they pushed mass immigration of 250,000 plus. You can see here going through here, and this is where the transformation, the demographic change really started in Canada. You see this big block here of just steady mass immigration into the country, typically of third world immigrants. Then if we look at this one, this continues here from 2000 to 2018. You see it's just a steady stream of mass immigration from third world countries. Harper was at historic levels, and Trudeau's only gone up a little higher than Harper. They're all in on the mass immigration. All the multi-controlled opposition is behind it. But this mass immigration, this sustained mass immigration, is behind the transformation, behind the demographic transformation of Canada, without question. This is the engine behind it. This is what's causing it. This is all planned and organized by the multi-controlled opposition in Ottawa. Every single one of those cronies entrenched in Ottawa supports sustained mass immigration, which is, the truth is, it's causing the replacement of Canada's traditional population. And I'm going to show City TV News, and they said, oh, that's so disturbing, the replacement. How dare me say that? But that is a fact. Every Canadian needs to accept that fact and decide if that's what they want for the country. Why should it be dictated by these globalist sellouts in Ottawa? So we're going to present the facts on that right now. And I've presented this before. This is from Statistics Canada. Canada's visible minority population. 1981, 4.7% of the total population. 2016, 22.3. It's projected for 34.4 by 2036. And 80% by 2100. This is the radical transformation that's going on. This is not made up. Canada, if it continues with the sustained mass immigration from third world countries, will be a supermajority of visible minority population. It'll be a visible majority population, supermajority. That's what's happening. This is not fiction. And this is the reverse. 1981, 95.3% was the traditional population, and it's just going down, down, down. 2021, it's already dropped to 74.6%. That's the projection. 2034, 65.6%, and then eventually down to 20% by 2100. This country will be radically transformed from a demographic standpoint. And I'm going to get further into that. There are some points that need to be discussed. I'm going to go through the different arguments tonight just to get the discussion rolling. But there's an argument about settler rights for European Canadians in the legal jurisdiction. Apparently, there's no legal right to settler rights when the European pioneers and settlers came. This is a political decision. But the fact is that European Canadians are 30 million plus of Canada's total population. They are the majority. So they founded and created Canada primarily. That is a fact. It was European pioneers, settlers, nation builders. They worked the land. They didn't get government handouts. And then they had high fertility rates back then. And these people who were born here became indigenous to the land called Canada. That's when Canada formed in 1867. That is a fact. They became native to Canada. And if I look at this government document, even what new immigrants are supposed to study and learn, they even say that in the discovery document of Canada. And I'll take you down to it right here. I'm surprised they even passed the citizen test. But right here, even in this discovery document, to understand what it means to be Canadian, it is important to know about our three founding peoples. It talks about Aboriginal, French, and British. And these French and British we view as European Canadians. And it wasn't just French and British, but they were the primary Europeans that founded the country. It's right in the discovery document. Yet we have new immigrants from the third world saying, what are you doing in our country? You have no right to this country. Go back to Europe. That's what's going on. That is very disturbing. So I'm going to play a video here. You could I'm going to start to pull the layers off so you can understand why this is going on. This was in City TV News. It was a complete smear piece, and there was a false equivalency to that mad person, the madman from New Zealand who killed all those innocent people in the two mosques. Somehow they're associating the NCA Community Center video with that. It's just a complete false correlation. And then they have some expert on there talking about, oh, the replacement. How dare them talk about the replacement? That's disturbing. But I'll play the video. This is the reason we have new immigrants coming out against European Canadians. They're getting fed this nonsense. Listen to this.
Traditional Canadian populations are being replaced.
It's frightening language, according to one expert in white nationalists. A man says traditional Canadians are being replaced while filming the diverse visitors at this recreation center. For some, the message is uncomfortably close to what was written by the alleged New Zealand mosque shooter.
Canada is being turned into a UN globalist village.
This video was posted a day after 50 people were killed in Christchurch to the National Citizens Alliance Facebook page. Barbara Perry, the director of the Center of Hate, Bias and Extremism, says it echoes the shooter's manifesto titled The Great Replacement.
Throughout the narrative that he shared around, globalism and the situation is getting worse, things that resonated with what the New Zealand shooter had to say. So it really is quite disturbing.
This is only going to get worse as long as those multi-controlled opposition parties are in power.
The rec center is located in Calgary's northeast in Ward 5, which according to the city has an 81% visible minority population. The man isn't doing anything illegal, but Perry says this is something police and authorities should take very seriously.
The other audience are the affected communities, and if they were to see this video, what it says to them. So I think it's really damaging and can create real fear and anxiety.
It's certainly being taken seriously by management here, which approached me while I was filming outside.
Just wanted to check to see who was here, that's all.
Yeah. So do you know about this guy that did the video?
Stephen Gar. Yeah, we're all very aware of it.
Yeah.
For sure.
In a statement, it says the partners who proudly serve the community through the Genesis Center value diversity. We are reminded that there is always a need for more education on the benefits of inclusive diversity.
I'm at a tax-paying community center in Alberta, and this is the demographic reality.
Perry says her research has found close to 300 white nationalist groups in Canada. She says these groups are good at hiding what they're really about.
The Soldiers of Odin, with whom I'm sure you're familiar, who talked about the fact that they're doing good community works and, they veil their surveillance of mosques.
In Calgary, Crystal Adaris, City News.
There you have. So I ask you, what is disturbing about talking about demographic reality, talking about the factual transformation of Canada? What is disturbing? What we say is disturbing is the fact that it is happening. Yet the media is trying to make this into something it's not. We want to have a national dialogue on this. We think every Canadian should have the say on the current state of the country and the future of the country. But they're making it into some kind of extremism and all this nonsensical stuff. So is it any wonder why most Canadians don't trust the media when they put out smear and nonsense like this? It's unbelievable. But this is a reason we're getting a fissure in our country, a divide with
I greet you with the Islamic greeting of peace.
Also, we can look
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu.
The quote unceded land in British Columbia.
Our Imam
in place.
Jamal summed up
on,
our feelings in New Zealand, the Muslims of New Zealand, and our country in New Zealand.
Aboriginal sovereign nations.
So I'm not going to take any more of your time, because from here we are going to go and start our own barriers.
We got the truth and
I would like to conclude in the language of the people of New Zealand, the Tangata Whenua.
Of the dreadful
I will use the word of law.
And we have a government full of apologists.
Aroha.
Apologists for past governments, for European Canadians, over the treatment of First Nations. There's a constant attack on traditional European Canadians going on. We believe this is part of the globalists who and their cohorts. They're trying to divide and also replace. And we can see that through the media all the time.
Inshallah, burial will start at 4 o'clock at the cemetery. The mass burial will start at 4 o'clock at the cemetery.
White nationalism.
Everybody is welcome.
White supremacy. That's all you hear. And you never hear about brown supremacy or brown nationalism or black supremacy or black nationalism. It's all about white.
Well, right now you are with One News special.
It's racial profiling.
The Prime Minister there, we can see making her way out of the Friday prayers. With me is Muslim Mahdi, the Imam there, a powerful speech, some powerful words in there. We heard the Imam say, through love and compassion, New Zealand is unbreakable. Terrorism has no colour, no race, no religion. What did you take out of that
country
speech?
of immigrants.
Well, the words were
When the first
really summarizing
Europeans
the
that came over, they weren't immigrants, they were pioneers, settlers,
I think
nation
what
builders.
touched my heart
Even the discovery
was
document
when
says
he
that.
addressed those who
There's all
killed
this
as
political
martyrs.
correctness going on.
And I just would like to emphasize that martyrs
And
have a
then we
very
got,
special
you could argue that the
place
new
in
immigrants
Islam.
coming in from the third world
and we
want
do believe that
what the Europeans
each
have here.
drop of their blood is gone unwasted.
And
I can see
they attack the Europeans for being on First Nations land, but they're on First Nations land too. And they have private property. Are they going to give that up to First Nations? No. So there's a lot of hypocrisy going on there. I'm going to turn to another article here. And this goes into it here. And this was by Professor Eric Kaufman. He's from the University of London. And he estimates that 80% of the Canadian population will be non-white in less than a century by 2100. So that means European Canadians who are typically white will be relegated to 20% of the population. And to put this in context, in 1960, European Canadians were around 97% of the population. So this is a radical transformation going on. He goes on to say, right here, he's saying Canada is actually undergoing, quote, undergoing the fastest rate of ethnic change of any country in the Western world, according to Professor Kaufman. The fastest rate of ethnic change. Continue a high immigration intake. and the fact that 4 out of 5 newcomers are visible minorities. These are facts. These are facts. And these are things we need to discuss. The demographic change in Canada is the fastest in the world. 4 out of 5 immigrants coming in are visible ethnic minority. This is a fact. The country is being radically transformed. And what we're saying at the NCA, let's have a dialogue on this. Is this right for the country? Is this the path we want to go down? Do we want our traditional populations replaced? At the NCA, we don't believe they should be replaced. We should be striving for larger traditional families. That's something we support. And if we look further into this, these are the mass immigration numbers I want to go into. But this is in 2016 under the current globalist liberals. You can see the primary countries coming in. Philippines, India, Syria, China, Pakistan, right there. Those are the top 5 countries in 2016. If we go back in time to 2014 under the globalist conservatives, the top countries coming in were the Philippines, India, China, Islamic Republic of Iran, and Pakistan. Those were the top 5 countries coming in. And it should be noted here, under Harper in 2014, under that globalist regime, they admitted in 260,400 immigrants. And this is one of the highest levels in more than 100 years. It's historic mass immigration. And it doesn't matter which multi-controlled opposition you put in there. They all support the mass immigration, which is, we argue, turning Canada into a UN globalist village, and we are losing our identity, our heritage, our cultural norms. And we're replacing our traditional populations. This is a fact. Those are facts. So our message to Canadians, let's discuss this. Why is it coming from top down from Ottawa? That's undemocratic, dictatorial. What agenda do they have in transforming the country? So we say, let's have a dialogue. That's why we went to the community center. We see the demographic changes. They are unprecedented in world history, what's going on. It's the fastest ethnic change in any country in the world. We need to discuss this. Another thing here too that we got to consider is the fact that it was the globalist conservatives who signed Canada onto UN Agenda 21, UN Agenda 2030. And this is all about the post-national state, transforming Canada into a UN globalist village, and replace Canada's traditional population. This is all through the UN, these agendas which Canada has adopted. Harper did UN Agenda 2030 in 2015. The current government is implementing it. It's about global communism, global citizenry, open borders. That's what they're implementing. It doesn't matter which of these multi-controlled opposition parties are in power. They're all doing the same thing. And then we can look at Trudeau here. Trudeau's just more transparent about this replacement agenda, which is a fact. He says, look, he's trying to look like a thinker. This part-time drama teacher, he's like, oh, he has deep thoughts. So he says the very concept of a nation founded by European settlers, he never mentioned the pioneers or nation builders, is offensive to me. That's pretty, he's totally showing contempt for these hard, the first Canadians to come here and create our country. And then he uses the term old stock white uses the word white. Canadians are an unpleasant relic and, quite frankly, replaceable. And we will replace them. So, and they are replacing them without question. There is a major replacement going on. There is no questions asked. All the data from Statistics Canada supports it. We got Professor Kaufman, Professor Duchesne, and other people that document this as well, who are specialists in demographics. This is happening without a single thread of doubt. So again, National Citizens Alliance says, let's have a dialogue. Let's discuss the state of Canada, the future of Canada. Do we want our traditional populations replaced? Because that's what's happening through all the multi-controlled opposition and their sustained mass immigration. Alternatively, do we want to support our traditional populations? Do we want to try and have larger families and promote that instead of being dependent on immigrants from the third world, which is an endless supply of third world immigrants out there? India has over 1 billion people. China over 1 billion. Pakistan is over 300 million plus. There's an endless supply of third world immigrants that can come and flood the country. The National Citizens Alliance, I have to stress, is the only party running in 2019 that will end mass immigration. We support 50,000 or less per year. We believe this on economic, environmental, and societal standpoints that this immigration mess needs to be reduced. Mass immigration needs to end. It is hurting most Canadians. That's why we support 50,000 or less, and we did a video last week on it. Look at that to see our reasons for reducing this, ending mass immigration. Secondly, we will stop the replacement of the traditional population. We will stop it. We are the only party running in 2019 that will stop the replacement. This replacement, as I mentioned, is an indisputable fact. So we encourage Canadians to think about these issues, because if you vote for us, we're going to stop the replacement. If you vote for any of the multi-controlled opposition parties in Ottawa who support sustained mass immigration, you are voting for the replacement of Canada's traditional populations. That is a fact. So you have a clear choice here, one or the other. So you got to make your mind up. And if you support NCA, join the party, volunteer, run as a candidate, donate to the party, so we can take on the multi-controlled opposition and turn this country around. And I hope the information tonight was beneficial, but this fissure is real. Go look at the comments on our Facebook page pertaining to this video. It is very disturbing. That is the true story here. That is what CDTV should have been discussing, is all the disturbing comments, all the contempt for European Canadians, all the hard work they did in creating this country, and now they have third world immigrants coming in who are saying, we want what you have, get out of this country. And the anger, the contempt is unbelievable, what's going on. And I've sketched over this tonight, but there's a lot of different layers going on. There's a lot of hypocrisy. But remember, the main engine is sustained mass immigration. Discuss this, give us your feedback, and thank you for joining us.